All right, guys, in honor of the Terrifier franchise, in today's video, we have a massive giveaway for you all.
So massive, it's actually terrifying. 3 lucky viewers will have a chance to win one of these items. Third place winner will get Terrifier 1's Bloodbath Art the Clown action figure made by Trick or Treat Studios. Second place will get Little Pale Girl doll, Living Dead doll version from Terrifier 2. And first place, last but not least,
The piece de resistance.
a signed poster by David Howard Thornton. That's right, Art the Clown himself. And yes, it does come with a certification of authenticity. So if you guys would like a chance to win one of these items, this is how you enter. Watch the video, grab some popcorn, hang out with us for a bit, and we'll give you the instructions at the end.
Hello, boils and ghouls. It's me, David Howard Thornton, Art the Clown himself, and you're watching Channel 116.
Welcome, channel surfers. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stanley, this is Dante, and our longtime friend and guest, Gary, and today we're going to be ranking all 3 of the Terrifier films. So the way this is going to work is we're going to rank each film based on 3 categories: kills, characters, and atmosphere, giving them each a score of 0 to 5. Let's start off with the first full-length film, 2018's Terrifier. Let's start with you, Dante. How'd you feel about the kills in the first Terrifier film?
First off, I loved the kills. Majority of them. They were very intimate. Probably my favorite kill scene in all the movies was in the first one. He was creepy, just followed him around, was like a stalker throughout the whole thing, like he was trying to find his victims, and then it's almost like he played with them.
Can you elaborate on your favorite kill scene from that film?
My favorite kill scene is the hacksaw scene, absolutely.
Dawn being sawed in half and the crotch down. We've never seen anything like that before.
No, and I remember the first time I saw Terrifier, it was literally when it came out, and my jaw was dropped the whole time. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I just fell in love, and then that scene just like sealed the deal.
My thing is when I think about it, I think about memory, right? Like what sticks in your head, no matter how long you go from watching it again. I have a hard time. I'll have to sit there and think sometimes what other kills happened. But given what they had to work with, I feel like it gets a little bit more credit because of that. I want to hear from Gary now, though. How do you feel about the Terrifier kills in the first film?
So my main takeaway is the killing didn't seem to have a purpose as much in there. Just everybody's going to get killed. I didn't like what I thought was sometimes a little over the top in the blood squirting, you know, in every single kill scene.
What the fuck's wrong with that?
I don't know. It just doesn't seem so, not to compare to the other ones later, but where they go from the squirting to the splatter, it seems more realistic to me and not so sort of artificial and cheesy, which again, the budget and everything makes perfect sense and you just do what you have to do. So the 2 parts that I liked the most, one isn't really a kill, but it's the thumbs in the eyes in Monica. She doesn't end up dying, but like the realness of that and you know, even on the low budget, it looked relatively real and very cringy, and you know, I sort of appreciated that.
It's one of those kills too that like it makes you kind of like feel it watching it because it bothers you to see that happen. It gives you like
that visceral response because you can imagine somebody trying to push their thumbs into your eyes. Yeah, like
seeing a bone be broken or something. It has the same kind of effect.
And then my favorite is probably the most controversial of all of them is actually the gunshot scene at the end where everybody tends to hate it.
Yes.
But because everything else was so over the top, blood, gore, and you know, like how many different ways can we kill people with different things? And then the simplicity at the end of just gunshot to the head.
I told my fiance's friend to watch it. She had never seen any of them. And that was her first bitch, was like, he pulled out a gun? Like, listen, I have been anti-gun in horror movies since I was a little boy. But the way they did it in that film,
for sure,
it had to happen that way. It was a perfect balance between the gore and everything. So I agree.
And I'm going to contradict that later because I hate the gun scenes in the other ones. But in that one specifically...
No, I agree with you there.
Yeah. It was perfect to do one time and then don't do it anymore. But then they revisit it obviously later.
Right. So. Yep. I agree with that as well. Awesome. Interesting. Okay. So now we got to give it a score. The kills category, 0 to 5. I'll start with me. I'm going to give it a 3.5.
If I would have to rank Terrifier 1 kills, I would probably give it a 2.5 because it's my favorite kill scene of any movie, but at the same time, I feel like the other kill scenes are very lackluster. What about you, Gary?
I also gave it a 2.5 for a lot of the same reasons. I think the cutting in half Dawn kill scene is by far and away the best. But everything else, all the other kills kind of really drag the score down for me. Yeah. Compared to everything else.
Makes sense.
I would agree.
I think a lot of people would agree. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments if you feel the same way about the kills in the first film. All right, moving on to the next category. Characters. Dante, we'll start with you.
I personally liked all the characters, even the exterminators.
Yeah.
I even liked those guys. I don't know. It was just the way he portrayed all the characters was just like normal people. It was like everything just flowed and they were relatable. Like I know people that were just like them in real life. Even bitches like Monica that got their eyes fucking gouged out. I loved it because I couldn't stand her. Tara is probably one of my favorite characters. Definitely also.
She's got that sass in the look in her face. She reminds me of somebody that I'm not going to mention.
Sasquatch.
No. I thought you would know as soon as I said that.
Which one? Oh, okay.
Burn, bro.
Okay.
Which one?
I got it.
Tara's a bitch. Characters for me, I feel like on one hand, I understand exactly what you mean about them being regular people and that being sort of relatable. But at the same time, I feel like there wasn't a whole lot to them because of the lack of story, which I understand why they did that with that film. But there wasn't enough for me to connect to them. And one thing I think is important, that goes back to the kills category, is if you can build an emotional relationship with the character, when the kill happens, it's that much more intense. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But overall, not bad. What about you, Gary? What do you think?
I'm definitely closer to your side on this one. All of the characters, and it's kind of because of what Dante said, that they were just regular people, that they felt replaceable to me. They didn't feel important to the story. So it's hard to like have a connection with them and care that they did or didn't die throughout the way. For me, Art was the only thing that mattered in this movie, that nothing else exists if he doesn't exist, and like his ability to matter without ever speaking. I took notice of it pretty early on and it stuck with me the whole movie. So for me, this one was all about Art and everybody else was not important.
I'm glad you brought that up because my first thought when I was thinking about the characters category was everybody except Art. I don't know why. I just was judging all them, but this is the first time you see Art, the first time you see what he's about. The fact that he can't speak, but he conveys so much even without that it will affect my score. You know what I mean? These characters, man, everybody probably knows someone in real life that acts just like each one of those characters in that. That's true, but if you add some story or show their family or show them at home first, sort of like they did with Vicky, I feel like it can add a little bit more emotional reaction to the kill. I don't think that's necessary when he was talking about the whole movie is about Art. It's painting a picture of who he is and what he's about. So that's why I like the characters, because they are that relatable and he's just on a rampage and it makes you like think of real life. So the fact that it's like super focused on Art, you're basically saying you give a pass for them to just be regular people. I agree with him. I agree with him 100% on they're pretty much irrelevant, but I love the characters in general. I love like how they portrayed everyday people. One's a bitch, one's a sassy like goth type chick, the other one's like a ditzy blonde. Yeah, I think you and I were more talking about the feeling that you're trying to get from connecting to a character so you can care if they exist or not. Let's hear what each of us rate this. I'll start with myself. I actually will give this a 3.5. I'm going to go with a little bit different score than I was going to originally, so I'm going to give it a 3. What about you, Gary? This is the category I went back and forth the most on with the score, and I still have a pretty low score, I think, but I'm going to give it a 2.5. For me, if it were just talking about him, it's a 4.5 or a 5 for me in this movie. You really did not like this movie all that much. I did. I appreciated it. More so after the fact, putting everything into context, the budget and everything. I think
Art's character and what he does in this movie is almost perfect, where all the flaw happens everywhere else.
All right, so Dante, moving on to the next category, atmosphere.
The atmosphere, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this. It didn't really do much for me. It just made me feel like a typical Halloween-y type horror movie. That's
interesting you say that, though, because my opinion of why you like that movie so much is the atmosphere, is the warehouse, the grindhouse feel, the super in your backyard in an abandoned type building or old shitty apartment.
Yeah, the look and the feel, like in that aspect where it took place, like how it is like kind of a dingy or like look about the film.
It's Riverbend in 1994.
Right. Shitty dumpy place with cockroaches.
So what score would you give atmosphere then?
I would give atmosphere a 2.5.
So for me, I mean, same thing. It all comes down to budget, understanding what they had to work with. I'll give it a little bit higher score. I'm going to give it a 3. What do you think? How do you feel about it?
For me, this is the one where the budget matters the most. And I think, you know, for what they had to work with and what they were able to accomplish in there, I think they did a pretty good job. There's obviously, you know, very few scenes in different, you know, places where the movie is taking place. And so that obviously is difficult to make it exciting and enjoyable because you're kind of stuck in these places for a really long time. But overall, I think they did a pretty good job.
What's your score for this?
I also gave it a 2.5.
All right, so let's go over the final scores and see what each of us got for this movie.
My total was an 8.5. Stanley's total was a 9.5, and Gary's was a 7.5.
Wow, my score was higher than yours.
Yes. Next up, we have 2022's Terrifier 2. And I believe we're going to hear from Stanley first.
All right. So we're on the kills category. 5. No, okay, so
stop it.
So here's the thing about the kills in Terrifier 2. There's a lot of them. They're very intense. There's a lot of special effects. The budget's higher. They're nasty and disgusting. They're vile. There's more stuff that I've never seen in any movie before. I can spout off the top of my head probably most to all of them if I had to without thinking too hard about it. I'm a huge fan of Terrifier 2 kills, man. It's up there for me. So what about you, Gary? How do you feel about the kills Terrifier 2?
My big thing was that they felt a lot less cheesy to me, right? They felt better put together. I don't know why this stuck in my head, and I talked about it with one, is the splatter versus the squirts.
Okay.
And the kills. The splatters just seemed way more realistic to me than just the random blood squirting out of an arm or whatever, you know, every single time. So that made a big difference to me. There's obviously a lot more kills in this one. Maybe borderline too many. Luckily, the movie is quite long, right?
Right,
so those still spread out over that relatively well. But the alley bedroom scene is by far, I think, the best, and just has a little bit of everything, kind of the slow torture along with the kill itself. So that was my favorite out of those.
What would your second favorite be? I'm curious.
That's tough.
Let me tell you mine while you think about it.
Yeah. Tell me yours.
So my second favorite is Brooke in the bathroom in the Terrifier, because the bathroom is just covered in shit and blood. And he beats the fuck out of her chest with that bat spike thing, and then he takes a bite out of her heart. I don't know. It sticks with me.
I'm trying to think now. I got to think of the other kills in there. That one's just stuck in my brain.
Dude's dick gets cut off. Sienna's mom gets her head blown off out of the car while it's covered in shaving cream, and then he shoves mashed potatoes in her face. The Halloween costume store guy gets his fucking head cut off. And
I liked the kill itself wasn't anything special, but the aftermath. The aftermath of the candy being in there was good. And
the little kids walking by the store and looking in, and Art just stands there like he's a statue or something. I love that shit.
And maybe that's the thing too, is none of them kills outside of the bedroom scene really stood out. They were all just good to me, but the bedroom scene and how sort of long it took, and was kind of not drawn out in a bad way, but it wasn't just chop their head off and be done with it, right? There was a lot more to it.
I enjoyed the part of her being tortured, crawling across the floor, bones getting broken, but then when it cuts away and then it comes back and he's and she's on the bed, I hated that part of it.
That's my favorite part, dude.
It was so cheesy looking.
It's the fakest part of this.
I did not like that. I loved the costume.
Ready for this.
The costume house.
Yeah, that is
the
awesome.
best kill, real looking kill out of the entire franchise, in my opinion.
Okay, so at a certain point, the person in real life would be dead, but they stay alive. There's like this, is there a supernatural thing at play here where he's keeping them alive longer to suffer? Like, it does look cheesy, but that's what I loved about it. I was like, that is so cool looking, and I'm okay with it being sort of Halloween proppy.
The more we're talking about it, the more I actually hate that part now.
I know.
Just that little tidbit.
Yes.
All right, so scores. For me, I wasn't lying. I give it a 5.
Stop it.
Shocking.
Dude, you
Don't tell me what to do with my score. It's my score, not yours. You have your own score.
I'll take my score and go home.
If it makes you feel better, drop whatever your score is, another point to make up for mine being 5.
Can you go negative points?
Dude.
Sure. Why not? All right, with that being said, let's move on to Gary over here, who's a little more
Reasonable?
Yeah.
reasonable.
I gave it a 4, which might still be a high score compared to what.
I really hate that I'm about to do this, but mine's a 3.5.
Oh, so it's not that bad.
Which is an entire point higher than the first one.
You make no sense to me.
Yeah, what were you so upset about that?
I hate this movie and all the kills,
because
but I'm giving it a better
I hate
score.
that everything is better than the first one. That's what I hate.
So you're mad at yourself. You're not mad at the movie.
I'm mad because this is my least favorite by far in the franchise.
The score is reflecting otherwise.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to characters. Gary, what do you think?
I mean, I think that they definitely did a much better job of the supporting characters. This one, you actually cared about them. This is where you actually first get the beginning, like, development of the characters, specifically with Sienna and Jonathan, and sort of give you that, like, a hero to root for, and then there's, like, the family dynamic of it, and, like, you start to, you know, kind of contrary to what we talked about earlier, for one, where everybody that entered into the movie then just gets killed. Whereas once that doesn't happen to them, you start to sort of like, okay, I can relax a little bit. They're going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
And you can pay attention to them a little bit more.
I guess I'm actually trying to figure out where I fit in this. I like the characters from the first one because they're relatable. In the second one, I feel like they're more just, it's more like just a movie. It doesn't feel like the first one felt.
And that's why my score gets better, is because
that's what I'm trying
does
to get
feel
at.
more like a movie. And I think
yes.
For us, we enjoy that more.
And he made the point earlier in one of how your style of movie, you lean towards
the grindhouse, the realism.
And I lean way more towards a well put together production.
Produced.
I'm going to let you take me on this journey. You just tell me what I need to do along the way.
Yeah.
Well, that's what 3 does.
Well, there's a reason 3 is my favorite.
Right?
But I think this bridges the gap between 1 and 3. I think this is maybe one of the...
That makes sense.
You know, 1, 2, and 3, it's very... You know, this is like right in between both of those.
And a lot of people will say, even if they don't care for 2 that much, that they still say it was necessary. And it's one of those things where this franchise in general feels like each one was important. They're all very different, but still cohesive. And you don't find that often in franchises. Like, there's usually 1 or 2 that you're just like, no, get that out of there. And maybe you feel a little bit like that with 2, but it seems like you feel you appreciate it enough for it to be okay that it's there to be a bridge, right?
I think 1 to 3 would have been too big of a jump, right? It would have went from too bad to too good. 2 has to exist to sort of get you to the other.
You need the progression with the relationships and stuff too. So
there's characters here for me to care about, good and bad, right? Little Pale Girl is like, what is her role sort of in the movie? I don't really care, but I like that she existed. You know what I mean? Like,
there's one person who sets themselves aside though, and I think that's Lauren Lavera. She's a good actor. She's good in 2 and she's good in 3, and she's not just good, she's great. I think she is one of the best actors in that franchise. I really do. She's the most believable. She's the most emotionally responsive to what she's seeing happen. And we'll get more into that in part 3, but that's just how I feel.
I personally don't think Sienna was great in 2. That's just my opinion. I feel like she's just a character, and it's just building her up.
Here's what you both are saying is true, right? In that what his argument here is that she gets the most attention.
Yes.
She's being built up on purpose.
Yes.
Okay.
which is what they're doing.
Right.
And you're supposed to love her.
Right.
And you do.
And I do. Right.
And I don't.
And he doesn't because he knows that he's being forced to do so.
Yes.
And he's like, no, I'll love who I want to love, and I don't like her.
Don't tell me who to love. And I'm like, yes, I love anybody you tell me to love.
I think that given the budget and given the circumstances and given the movie, she does a really, really good job. And maybe she shines partially because everyone else is a little less to some degree.
I feel like Pale Girl shits all over Sienna.
I mean, I like that's the one character too that I try to like. It's like I'm so glad that she's in there, but also the film could exist without her.
Okay, yeah, I agree it could have existed without her, but I think her being in it made it better. But I didn't build any sort of like feelings about her character, really. I was just glad she was there.
Yeah.
Kind of how I feel about it.
You didn't have to connect with her in the movie.
That wasn't her purpose anyways.
Her job, I guess.
Her job was to shit on the laundromat
floor. On the laundromat floor, and she did do that. Yeah.
Going back to him, I loved her because I wasn't forced to love her, and she just existed.
But to some degree, you kind of were, right? Like that's kind of like
she was like
another partially,
playful,
but it wasn't pushed as hard as Lauren Lavera was as Sienna.
They really did push her.
Yeah,
but it was all.
She's the final girl. They set it up that way.
And presumably, throughout 2, they're setting you up to know that she's going to be there in 3. So like, you know what I mean? Like we have to make you want to care about what happens to her in 3.
Sure.
And even the same thing with Jonathan and.
All right.
To be fair, after I actually increased.
Jinx, you owe me a blowjob.
Wait, what? Again?
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm about sick of all this nonsense.
Terrifier
Too much love for Terrifier 2.
Oh my God.
Get a room.
Stanley.
Yes.
What was your score?
4.5 for characters.
Of course it was. Gary, what is your score?
A more reasonable score of 4.
Can you guys guess what mine is?
I'm going to say less than 4. But after your first on the kills side of it, I don't know. Because you were way higher than it sounded like you were going to be on kills.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's hard to predict because he doesn't make any sense.
I make all sorts of sense, and Gary understands me.
I understand you too. But
I understand your words, but I don't understand your score after your words.
Well, my score is a 2.5.
So why did you dislike the characters so much?
They just didn't do anything for me.
I think he likes to see like the gas station worker, the exterminator, the guy who lives in the apartment.
People.
Yeah,
it wasn't a pizza guy and an exterminator.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't that and a coroner.
This is a mom and a son and a sister and other categories of people, I guess.
So yeah, this was more of like a Scream type feel. Like
that's.
But I did like the kills. Next for Terrifier 2, we have Atmosphere.
Atmosphere. I mean, I don't want to talk forever, but there's so many things in this movie that I like about the atmosphere, and it all has to do with nostalgia. What about you, Gary?
So, I mean, I liked that it was a lot more scenes, and we moved around a lot more. And I, again, back to like the character development of it needed that extra time and those extra places to sort of take place and give you. Even, I guess my favorite sort of scene in there was the Halloween store scene or whatever. And even though it wasn't, incredibly long, just the employee working there and you getting to sort of spend some time with him and then, he ultimately gets killed and all that stuff. I liked those aspects of 2 much more than I did from 1. I don't like the 80s slasher style, so I'm going to be a little bit more critical of that part of it, and that's probably my biggest knock on the whole movie here.
So you
is the atmosphere of that part of it,
So you didn't grow up in your Ninja Turtle underwear eating Fruity Pebbles watching Freddy Krueger at 6?
Not the Freddy Krueger part. You lost me at the Freddy Krueger part. I did, I did watch all those shows, but I just never, I don't appreciate them the way that you appreciate them. I definitely know that for sure. So it makes perfect sense to me why you like 2 so much, and that in the atmosphere, I can imagine your score is going to be pretty high as well.
Just to like solidify that a little bit more, every year when we would decorate for Halloween, when Halloween was over, I would then decorate my room. I should have said it to the viewers because I know you guys know. But the decorations went in the bedroom after Halloween until I was probably about 25. So here we are.
Well, you're 40 and you still have Halloween decorations.
Yeah, but this isn't my bedroom.
I guess technically speaking, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, but close enough though. All right, Dante, atmosphere.
I actually loved the atmosphere of this movie.
Jesus Christ, dude!
Which is kind of weird
No.
Because this was the Halloween feel that I needed in the first one. Everything about it was, just 80s, early 90s, like horror movie. Nightmare on Elm Street. It gave me that feel. But then the Clown Cafe just ruined it for me. And I had to speak that because nobody else brought that up. So I figured that since nobody wants to talk about it, I'm going to say how much I disliked it.
We can talk about it a little bit because it's interesting. The first time I seen it, I could not stand that song, and I felt like that scene drug on, and I just didn't feel like it was necessary. I appreciated like certain portions of it, right? But as a whole, it could have been so much shorter. Like, if you want to show a dream sequence, fine. It just, I don't know. I don't think it needed to be that long.
There's a couple of kill scenes in there that are good that make it somewhat worth it.
Yes, I agree.
But it is a little bit weird. It almost is like now there's a musical in the middle of this horror movie. You know what I mean?
I hate musicals, dude. Yeah. Hate them.
So, I don't know what order you guys watched Terrifier in, but I watched it in order. After the Clown Cafe, I couldn't watch it. I had to go back again another time and try to watch it.
So you're saying you watched the Terrifier films in order? Is that what you did? I did too, except when I watched part 2, as soon as I seen the pale girl and knew that it was like possibly something he was seeing but might not be there, I was turned off by that, like, because I was just like, this is going way further than what I expected from what I seen in 1, and I don't want any extra horror characters, and I don't think I'm going to like this. So I did not watch that movie again until I watched part 3.
You don't like the supernatural aspect.
No, I hated it almost everything.
I kind of like that little bit of a tie-in because
I like it now, but I didn't at first.
But then I loved it when the first part of 2, I loved it, but then it got to the Clown Cafe, and that's what ruined it for me.
Game over.
The touch of the supernatural I like.
The sprinkling in of
my
it.
biggest critique of 3 when we get there is the supernatural part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Where I loved the realness of everything else, and I was okay with the pale girl in there, and like, that's fine. You can kind of write that off. He's having visions. He's crazy. Whatever it is, that's fine. But then we get into the weird, dreamy world.
He opens it up. Yeah, for sure. All right. So scores for atmosphere. For me, I'm gonna give it a 4.5. Gary, what score did you come up with for atmosphere?
I gave it a 3.5. Respectable 3.5.
Fair enough. Dante?
I almost don't want to say this, but I give it a 4.
You said 2 was your least favorite, right?
2 is my least favorite.
Are you sure?
Shut the fuck up. And for the totals, I am rather disappointed in myself because I gave it a 10 overall. And this is my least favorite of the franchise. Also, Stanley racked in a whopping 14 points, which is not surprising.
Yeah.
And Gary was a modest 11.5.
I feel like my score was like dramatic, his was realistic, and yours was surprising.
Mine was stupid.
That'll work too. All right, moving on to our next installment, we got 2024's Terrifier 3.
Gary?
So I thought they were relatively similar to 2 as far as like that I enjoyed. This one is obviously my favorite movie of the 3. I don't really have any complaints on the kill side of things. My favorite actually is the dentist one in the attic. Top of the fingers, the box cutter to the head.
The face being pulled down.
Face peel,
Dante kills.
This was by far movie perfection. I loved every kill scene. I think they were all, in my opinion, some of the best kill scenes in the horror genre. Like overall, like every single one of them were done well. They were put together well. The effects, like everything about them. I loved everything about the kills in this. I have nothing bad to say about them, honestly.
I think Terrifier 3's kills is what you get as a result of doing 2 films, recruiting a crew and some legendary people to help with special effects and putting all these masterminds together, having a little bit more of a budget, spreading it out and just laying it out with all those resources. There were no lackluster kills. They were all pretty intense, so much so that Damien actually intended for the shower scene to be like the bedroom scene as far as everyone's favorite. And it is a lot of people's favorite, but the one that's most brought up as the favorite is the end kill with the tube and the rats. But they're so close to being so disturbing and intense that I can see why a lot of people like one, a lot of people like the other. So in a sense, he had two bedroom scenes in Terrifier 3.
You know, the one thing that I wish they would have done for the tube scene that would probably made my favorite is instead of it just going in her mouth and down her throat, that it knocked her teeth out first.
Ooh.
And that's what I thought was going to happen while I was watching it the first time.
See him fly
and I started
out.
to cringe up. Yeah, I wanted to hear like the impact of it hitting her teeth and going there.
Makes my fucking teeth hurt.
Exactly. And so that would have probably been my favorite for sure. And maybe I'm a little more critical of it because it gets close to the supernatural part of the movie, which is the part that I don't like. So it's kind of in that same time frame of the movie, but
there's portions of that were cut out of that scene because Damien said basically Art was hammering that tube in like for way longer, and he was like watching it. He was just like, it was just so much. He's like, I don't know, is this too much or not? And so they kind of took it down a little bit because it still got the point across, you know. Dante.
Okay, before we go on to me, is it too much if I say my dick got hard when the scene came on?
No. No.
Which scene?
The glasturbation scene.
Oh yeah.
There's so much.
Getting hard.
See, no, I didn't count. I didn't count that in the kills part of it.
No, I'm not counting that in the kills, but it's gonna be.
I saved that
supporting.
Yeah.
Supporting stuff.
I didn't know where to put that in, but it might be my favorite part of all three of the movies, just by how fucking vulgar and just disgusting it is.
It's also the first kill scene with a hint of sexuality in it, because there's like none of that in any of the Terrifier movies.
Really no sexuality,
except for like the shower scene, but it wasn't the villains doing anything sexual. So like that was a step over the line a little further, but he did it perfectly. I mean, Terrifier 3 kills are right at that level of Terrifier 2 for me, but there's something special that's different about them. And to me, there's a few reasons why, like putting Art in these different situations, like the mall Santa and in the bar, like it created these creative ways to kill people in different circumstances and characters that we hadn't quite seen yet. And I feel like that's what made it special. Like the move to make this a Christmas movie is insanely good, and I'm so happy that it happened. Not to say that it wouldn't have still been good, but it's everything to me. And it's not just the kills, it's like where they happen and stuff too. Like the attic scene, like this is so gross and disgusting, and I love every minute of it. And it's like, it makes you like question yourself, like, why do I love this so much? This is so amazing. And to me, the attic scene is one of the creepiest, most sinister, amazing scenes I've ever seen in any horror film, hands down.
Yes, and he was sitting next to me while my dick was hard.
And mine was hard too. Actually, it was like this.
There was a popcorn bucket on top of mine, and he was grabbing for the popcorn.
That wasn't popcorn? Jeez. All right, Gary, so what'd you come up with for your final score for kills on Terrifier 3?
I also gave this a 4.
Dante?
The mall scene and the whole bomb aspect, it had me like, this dude's just going to kill everybody. He's blowing up all these kids. This is fucking great. Like, I was flipping out. And after I watched it, I'm like, well, we started talking about something one time. We were talking about the guns aspect and the bomb, and we're like, yeah, that's kind of dumb, but it's really not.
It's not.
It was like in the moment, that was perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's the one time that they do something different, you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
If they start revisiting the, bombing little groups of kids,
and
it won't be as good.
Yeah. And it becomes repeating, and it has to be.
I loved the gun scene in one and didn't care for it so much in the other ones because I didn't like that they repeated that thing, and it felt good in one and sort of reused.
But the bomb was new in 3.
Brand new was a different way, like multiple killings at one time. Made sense to me.
My score is a perfect 5.
So I'm going to have a Dante moment because I feel like the kills are perfection, and I do like that they're a little more spread out. and everything. I kind of agree with what you said, but at the same time, I feel like I need to give the higher score to Terrifier 2 because of everything else that goes in with those kills. And it's not to say that they weren't perfect in 3, but just to compare the two, I'm going to give it a 4.5. If the bedroom scene was in part 3, I probably would have got a 5. The opening scene, though.
Yeah, dude. I probably should have given this a higher score here. I feel like I left a half a point on the table here for sure.
All right, so moving on to characters. Gary.
So for me, it was, again, I cared about the development of the character. So all of the repeat characters in 3 that I already had, known from 2, especially when I rewatched them, because I actually watched 3 first, and then I watched 1, 2, 3 together. Mm-hmm. So going from 2 to watching 3 and already having this, sort of connection to these characters and stuff like that mattered for me a lot more in this movie, and was my, I think the best of all of them as far as caring about the characters and, watching them develop along the way.
I loved the characters in this. Now they're coming back, they're established, they're not pushed on me. Sienna comes out, she's traumatized. I can relate. It's back to the relatability. Yeah. Then they bring the family aspect in, and then they show you the kid and the family getting murdered in the first one. It makes you feel sympathy for them even more. So they brought this all together so well and perfectly that every character in this is movie perfection.
That's interesting that you pointed out the opening scene with the family. There was no time to develop a relationship for them, but here we are on Christmas Eve night, with a family, a seemingly loving, normal, everyday family, and there's mayhem just breaks loose. You don't need much time to develop an emotional connection to seeing them being murdered. So,
right.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't show the little girl getting killed, that gave you a little bit of mystery, and it made you almost hate Art for a minute.
Yeah.
But then he comes back in and fucking steals the show.
Draws you back in every time.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, the characters, pretty much everything you guys said, the development's there now. We have some backstory. But on top of that, from an acting perspective, they're better actors. I think they all did better. Even though Elliot, who plays Jonathan, wasn't in it as much, he was standoffish towards Sienna, which was a little weird for me, but he did a better job, I think, as an actor.
He didn't seem so clumsy and goofy,
he wasn't so
in this one.
Yeah. And exactly, and I think now though I don't hold that against him in 2 as much because he was young. He was a little quirky, goofy little kid. So, but I enjoyed him more, I think, in 3.
Absolutely.
And then Samantha Scafidi, who plays Vicky, I have never seen a horror movie that they bring in a duel, a partner that's also a villain that's fucking shit up too, who to me, in my mind, at this point, this day and this time, is just as important and entertaining and as awesome as the main character. I love Vicky. To me, it's Vicky and Art. It's not just Art anymore. It's Vicky and Art. Well, she's gone now, supposedly, but I'm saying for that film, I loved her. I've seen people online say they didn't need her. She was annoying. But I'm like, take her out of that movie and tell me what you have. Look at all that goes away.
I'm telling you right now, I don't know if he did this intentionally, but Vicky and Art are the comparison to Joker and Harley Quinn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're both psychopaths.
Plus, Vicky's verbal, and Art wasn't, so it gave it a chance to have some verbal
the horror
action.
Aspect of that. I love that whole aspect of it.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever talked about that.
No, we haven't. What did you think about Vicky? How do you feel about her role?
I mean, I don't feel as strongly as you. When you were saying that, though, it did start to make more sense to me. I hadn't really thought too much about it because she just seemed like she belonged there.
Sure, yeah.
So I didn't really question it ever, in there. But I did, she's one of the people I wrote down as who I thought was important as far as the characters went in 3. And you kind of had a little bit of, her backstory, but 3 is definitely where she shined at. Yeah, I don't know what the movie looks like if she's not in it.
Yeah, well, and the thing, on the spot, it might be hard to answer that question, but next time you watch the movie, look at all the things that happens with her and then take that away, and it's
I mean,
they would have had to put something else
the glass
there.
Scene, which we talked about, right?
All by itself.
One of my favorite parts of the
you take that out of that movie, and it would not be my favorite.
Yeah, and I almost discount it just because of how good art is still in that.
That is 100% my favorite scene in any movie ever.
Yes. So the reason I'm holding this up is because besides her acting and everything and her important role, the look they came up with, towards the end, she puts the makeup on and everything and kind of replicates Art's look, but she has her own look, and it is disgusting and nasty. It's gonna fuck you. And fucking scary, dude. Like, as a grown-ass man, if I seen that walking down the road, I don't know who I'd be more scared of, her or Art.
I think that glass scene in the beginning really plays a big part of that, too, of how early that happens in the movie and kind of what it makes you think, how just disgusting and nasty and everything it is.
Yeah,
he just kept pushing the boundaries more and more and more in that movie.
And when you look at her face, like you said, you see everything that you've seen her do up until then, and you're just like, this bitch is nasty.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the scores. Gary, what did you get?
I gave the characters a 4.5 in this, the closest to a 5 that I'm going to get.
Nice. Dante?
Nice.
I give this another 5. Movie perfection.
Movie perfection. I'm going to have to give it a 5 as well. All right, so I guess we move on to atmosphere, right? All right, atmosphere. Gary.
I feel like for this being my favorite movie, I have the least to say about this movie because I just don't have any criticisms. But I think, atmosphere-wise for 3, it was the best overall put-together movie. I liked all the scenes much better. Even like we were talking about with the characters and stuff, them giving each scene enough time that even when the opening kill scenes, he's not in the house that long, but he's there long enough for you to care that this family is going to get murdered. You get to see everything inside of the house. You get the feeling for what it's supposed to be. You know we're close to Christmas. You get all of that in such a short period of time. I think they did just a much better job, which is probably how they're still able to cut the movie down a little bit time-wise.
Yeah.
But it still feels more complete. Like all the stories get told inside of each of those little scenes. So for me, this was, I think, just a cleaner movie, closer to what I like in a style of just a well put together movie.
Yeah, everything kind of
just happens to be.
I do concur.
Horror movie.
Yeah, it all comes together. I feel like in 3, the best way that it can. Dante, atmosphere.
Well, I don't think the atmosphere is movie perfection, but it's pretty close. As far as that, the thing I liked pretty much everything about it until the ending. I didn't like the pits of hell opening up. It kind of felt like it was going to go somewhere like that route, but it just kind of threw me off. I think once I see the 4th one, my opinion on that might change. I don't know if I like the atmosphere as much as 2, but I liked everything they did with the atmosphere in 3 a little bit more.
For me, it's kind of the same thing. Like, I love the contrast of Christmas and horror together, but at the same time, I'm so attached to Halloween that it's not that I'm saying it could have been better, but I'll always gravitate towards the Halloween setup and scenery and colors and background and all that stuff. The supernatural stuff, I hate supernatural and horror movies, with a passion. However, there's always a little bit of supernatural in all the slasher films. They just don't go into it deep, like Jason and Freddy. There's some other driving force, something evil going on. They don't usually go too far in it. Some of them maybe do later in the films in the franchise. Initially, when I walked out of that theater, I was a little drawn back by it. I'll admit, I was like, the sword cut her hands and then they healed and there's this portal to hell. Is this going too far? But I'll tell you what happened. I loved the damn movie so much that I accepted it and made myself decide that I'm okay with it. And that's where I am right now.
I didn't bring it up, but it is my only criticism of the movie. We talked about it before, too, that particular scene. I'm somewhere in between both of you, right? Where I kind of forget about it. I just choose to ignore that it happened and just enjoy the rest of the movie. But I wish they sort of wouldn't have done it there in so much of it, where the other times that they used that sort of out to have some supernatural stuff. It was much more vague or subtle where this one was like a much bigger, a whole scene, you know. This scene ended up feeling to me sort of like the scene in the dream where they're in the
yeah, that makes sense. I get that. Yeah.
Whereas like I just wish this would end and this wasn't here in this part of the movie. Yeah. So it kind of sucks for me that that's towards the end, but everything leading up to there is so good that I'll just pretend.
And that's the thing you got to remember is there's a lot of talk about part 4 and is it going to take place in hell and all this. And I'm like, that scares me a little because the only movie or show or anything I've ever seen where I've been okay with like being in another realm or world, so to speak, is Stranger Things because they do it in a way that works. So I have faith that Damien will do that too. But, you know, if he goes really super far into it, it might take me a few times to be okay with it after I watch it.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see.
I think when you get there and how long you stay there matters a lot. Not just the fact that you use the supernatural.
It's everything. I agree.
And so, like, it being at the ending is probably my biggest complaint.
Yeah.
Is like I took this roller coaster ride to the top and then we got stuck there, you know, for a while.
Yep. Gary, what's your score for Atmosphere?
I landed on a 4.0.
I'm going to rank this a 4.5. As much as I did not like that the last like supernatural aspect of it, it gave the wonder, the excitement for the next one. It makes you think like, because that's all we've been talking about is what's going to happen in 4. I'm going to give it a 4.5 because I don't like it and because it does give me that wonder and that.
Yeah. That's a good point that I expected some amount of closure and then didn't get it. And so that upsets me, but it also makes 4 possible.
Yeah, builds anticipation.
Yes. It doesn't make 4 just come in and be another like Terrifier 1, for instance. Right.
So I can't give it a perfect score of 5. I got to go with a 4.5. All right. That wraps it up for Terrifier 3. Let's go over the scores. What's the final scores for this film, Dante?
I come in at a 14.5. Stanley, you come in with a 14. And Gary comes in at a 12.5, which is his highest. So let me ask you guys a question. How do you think these movies did overall? Like if we were to add up all of our totals on each movie?
Well, I think 3 is definitely our favorite overall.
Yeah, 3 would get the most points, I think.
We have 41 points for 3 overall, 35.5 for 2 overall, and 25.5 for 1 overall.
What does that say? What does that say? Is it just because we used categories, or does that mean that overall there's just certain aspects that we love about one, but it's not enough to hold weight against the other two? I think that's pretty accurate. Like I love 1. Say that again?
Yeah. I love 1.
The scores say.
But yeah, it says that it was shit. And I don't know if it's just a nostalgic thing because it was the first one I saw and I watched it over and over and over again.
Well, that, and I think if you were to expand these categories and add like 4 more and really get down to the nitty gritty and do a 0 to 10, it'd probably be a little closer to what you think, because there's other things about these movies that we couldn't really branch out into because we had to stay in the lane, so to speak. So
yeah, I never really looked at 2 in a whole. Like I just looked at it because I never could get into it, and then I went back and I didn't like it all that much. Watched it a 3rd time and I liked it more, and then I watched it a 4th time and then I hated the Clown Cafe again.
Like I'd be good with just seeing him set the girl playing the guitar on fire and then dancing with her, and that's all. That's it.
Yeah. You could easily cut that scene in half.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that's it. It's been real. It's been fun. And it has been real fun. Thank you, Gary, for showing up today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, Channel Surfers. So as promised, you have made it to the end of the video. So here are your instructions to enter the Terrifier giveaway. So all you have to do to enter is like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then comment below your favorite Terrifier film. But wait, there's more. How would you like some bonus entries?
We're going to make you work for them.
That's right. If you want 3 bonus entries into the giveaway, all you got to do is count how many times we all say Terrifier and then comment that number below.